Hi everyone and welcome back to 40-Minute Maths with me, Mr. Gosling. A special hello to my 6G class. Hope you're all getting on right with this at home. So we're going to start as we always do with seeing if you can be quicker than me. So here we go. Remember, you shout the screen, I shout the camera. You ready? 14 subtract 12, 2. 7 times 11, 77. I'm on fire today, I'm going quick today. 48 divided by 4. 12. The sum of 34 and 16. So if you don't know what sum of something is, you're in a bit of trouble now. 34 and 16 is 50. So sum means to add together. And you've got a nice little sort of number bond there. Adds together to make 50. 56 divided by 7, 8. The first prime number after 15 is 17. 400 divided by 10 is 40. Round 4,564 to the nearest 1,000 is 5,000. 6 squared, 36. Told you I was sharp today. 7 times 4 is 28. 4 cubed, 4 times 4 is 60. 64. 81 times 3 is 243. I calculated that by doing partitioning them again, partitioning them, and going 80 times 3, which is 240, 1 times 3, which is 3, adding them both together. 10 squared is 100. The square root of 225 is 20. No, it's not. Is 15. The product of 6 and 9. Can you remember what product means? It means multiply, so 54. 360 divided by 12 is 30. Remember, 36 divided by 12 is 3. Pop the 0 on the end. 13.4 times 2 is 26.8. 108 divided by 4. Quick way to divide by 4, half and half again. So I make that 27. Of course, as I've said before, if I get any wrong, it's a deliberate mistake, and well done for spotting them, if you do spot them. 20% of 40, so is £8. 20% of £40, 10% is £4, double it to make £8. 50 divided by 4 is 12.5. So our learning intention for today is to convert mixed numbers into improper fractions and vice versa, and add fractions and mixed numbers. And of course, there's the best in the business bonus questions at the end when you can apply those to reasoning type problems. Okay, so we're going to start by learning how to convert between mixed numbers and improper fractions and vice versa. And I think before we get started with just how to do the method, I think it's really important that you understand why we're doing it and exactly what is a mixed number and improper fraction. Well, if you think about a normal fraction is part of something, so it's less than one whole. When you've got more than a whole, you have to have either a mixed number or an improper fraction. An improper fraction is where the numerator is bigger than the denominator, or a mixed number is where you have a whole number with a fraction next to it. You can see here that 23/6 and 3/5/6 are the equivalent. So let's have a look at these 23/6 first of all. We can see this whole here is broken up into 6 pieces, it's broken up into 6. And there's another hole here broken up into 6 and 6 and 6. Okay, so you've got 4 holes altogether broken up into 6. So let's have a look how many 6 we've got altogether. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 18, and then 5 extra at the end. So we've got 23/6. So you can see there that there's 23, lots of 6 sort of pieces put together. Here we've got 3 and 5/6, which is exactly the same thing, because we've got 1, 2, 3 wholes, and then 5 6 at the end. So it's exactly the same thing. Okay, so that's the difference between an improper fraction and a mixed number. Now, if you haven't got that visual representation, there's a way you can just do it using the numbers and multiplying and adding. So, if you think about it, let's look at this one. 1 and 1/3. You can probably visualise something broken up into thirds. So 3/3 we know makes 1 whole. So we've got 1 whole, which is 3/3, and then you've got 1/3 extra, which would make 4/3. Okay? Here we have 3 wholes. Well, the wholes are broken up into fifths. So 1 whole would be 5/5, 2 wholes 10/5, and so on and so forth. 15. So 3 times 5 is 15. Add the 2, 17 fifths. Okay, it's exactly the same thing. Let's have a look at this one. 1 whole is 8/8, isn't it? 2 wholes, 16/8, and so on and so forth. So 4 times 8, which is 32, and then add the 5, which is 37. 8. So that's converting mixed numbers back into improper fractions. And you can do it the other way around if you wanted to convert your improper fractions into mixed numbers. It's a little bit like dividing and finding the remainder, this is. So to convert your improper fractions back to mixed numbers, you would do how many times 4 goes into 5? Because you've got 5 quarters, so it'll go once, and you've got 1 quarter left over. So 1 1/4 is the same as 5 quarters, and it works back the other way. 1 times 4 is 4, add the 1 is 5 quarters. Let's try this one. How many times does 6 go into 15? So 6 and 12 goes in twice, and you've got 3 left over. So you've got 2 wholes and 3 6 left over. I'm not going to go into simplifying fractions today. I think we'll save that for another time. Okay, let's have a look at this one. 23/7. I want to convert into a mixed number. 7 goes into 23, so 7 times table. 7, 14, 21 goes in 3 times. And then you should have 2/7 left over. Okay, so we're going to start this off nice and easy. So, like I said before, whenever I start doing a problem, I always like to break it down to its simplest form so that we understand the concept. And when you're adding fractions, I like to do this. When I first started teaching, I always used to forget with adding fractions, multiplying fractions, what I did. So I just used to think back to its simplest form. So, I know a little bit about pizza, right? So I know that if I go around someone's house and one of my friends gives me 2 quarters of pizza, and my other friend gives me 1 quarter of pizza, I can put that together to make 3 quarters of pizza. So I know that 1 quarter plus 2 quarters makes 3 quarters. So then I've got my way of remembering it. Well, thinking about that, well, obviously for adding fractions, you don't add the denominator, you just add the numerator. Okay, so 2 plus 1 makes 3, and you don't add the denominators together. So it's all well and good when you've got the same denominator and it's nice and easy and you've got normal fractions. But the problem comes in when you've got different denominators. So when that happens, you need to find a common denominator, a multiple of both numbers, a number that's in both the 4 and the 6 times table. Now there's a quick way you can do this, but you don't always get the lowest common denominator. If you can't think of one, you can always multiply 4 and 6 together, which would give you 24, and you could turn them both into 24ths as equivalent fractions. But there actually is a lower common denominator than 24. You may have already worked out that it's 12. I just like to write down what my common denominator is there and circle it. Don't know why, I just like to do it, help me to remember. Now, with your layout, I think it's really, really important with adding fractions, because I think, having taught for a few years now, children get quite muddled with their layout and adding fractions, and they're trying to do bits here, there and everywhere, and then they make mistakes with accuracy. So this is how I do it. When I know that I'm going to turn it into 12s, I want to turn both numbers into 12. So over here, I'll put 3 quarters. Then I leave a little bit of a gap. And over here, I'll put 5 6. And I'm going to turn it into 12. So 3 quarters equals something over 12. 5 6 equals something over 12. So I'm turning it both into 12. So I've left lots of space so my layout's nice and neat. So then I need to work out, what do I have to multiply 4 by to get to 12? We should have worked out, you do 4 times 3 makes 12, and then 3 times 2, which is 9. So I know 3 quarters is the same as 9 twelfths. 6 times 2 makes 12. 5 times 2 makes 10. Great, I've found my equivalent fraction. Now it's easy, isn't it? Can you remember back to when I added my quarters of pizza? Because I know I've just got to add the numerator. So then underneath I'm going to put 9 twelfths, add 10 twelfths equals 19 twelfths. And hopefully you can remember, if you're going to turn it back into a mixed number, that 12 goes into 19 once, so that'll be 1 and 7 twelfths as your answer. Okay, so now we're going to move on to adding mixed numbers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn these mixed numbers into improper fractions. So can you remember how we did it before? You multiply 3 times 3, which makes 9, and add the 2 to make 11. So we've got 11 thirds here. Okay. Now if you remember, I like to leave a little bit of a gap because we're going to find some equivalent fractions here. We're going to turn our 2 and 4 fifths. We're going to turn that into an improper fraction. So 2 times 5 is 10. Add the 4 to make 14 fifths. Okay. Now we've got some improper fractions that we can add together. I need to find a common denominator, or lowest common denominator, of 3 and 5. So if you can remember that trick I did, if you multiply the ones together, you always find a common denominator. So 3 times 5 makes 15. I always like to write up here, just to remind myself. And actually that is the lowest one you can get. So we're going to turn them into 15ths. Okay, so 3 times 5 is 15. 11 times 5 is 55. 5 times 3 is 15. I like to do a little time there just to remind myself. 14 times 3. Now, if you can't remember, or if you're not able to do 14 times 3 in your head, you might very quickly just want to do a little column multiplication next to it. So here we go, 14 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. Add the 1 is 4. So I know that is 42. Okay? So now I've got 55 15ths, add 42 15ths. So I'm going to write that down here. Again, if we're not too sure how to add 55 and 42, I'll do a quick column addition on the side there. I'm pretty confident that I can do this in my head because I know 50 plus 40 is 90 and 5 plus 2 is 7, so that's going to be 97 over 15. Okay, so here, if I want to turn it back into a mixed number, I've got to see how many times 15 goes into 97. So again, you could do a bit of bus stop division, which I'm going to come to on another lesson, but I reckon I can do that in my head because I'm pretty good at counting up in 15s. So 15, 30, 45. Okay, so I know 3 times 15 makes 45, but if I double 45, that makes 90. So 6 15s have got to make 90. I'm pretty sure if I added another 15, I'm going to go over 97. So it's got to be 6 times and 7 15ths. So 3 and 2/3, add 2 and 4/5 equals 6 and 7 15ths. Now there are some different ways of doing this. I'm aware of that you can add the numbers and then add the fractions afterwards. That's absolutely fine. This is just how I like to do it. Okay guys, so here's your questions. So if you'd like to press pause on your screen, and then when you're ready to go on and mark it, you can press play again and the answers will be on afterwards. Okay, so here's the answers here. I've answered these as improper fractions, so I'm just going to turn them back into mixed numbers. So 24 goes into 31 once, and you should have 7 24ths left over. 9 goes into 13 once, and you should have 4 9ths left over. 60 goes into 91 once, and you should have 31 60ths left over. And the answers on the right hand side, I'm not going to change at all. All I would say is that the middle one there, number 5, is you could have simplified that to 4 and 2/15. So if that was your answer, that's absolutely fine too. Okay, so here's your best in the business bonus questions. So have a look at the screen, look at the key information, pause your screen because the answers are going to come up in a second. Okay guys, so I'm going to go through your best in the business bonus questions now. So let's have a look at the first one. Okay, so 3 children have a large drink to share. Sarah drinks 2/7 of the drink. I'm going to circle that today rather than underline. Jane drinks 3/8 of the drink. What fraction of the drink does Tom drink? So the way you would do this is you'd have to add these 2 fractions together, okay, and then work out what is left to make one whole. So if you added these 2 fractions together, I believe it makes 37/56. Now 56/56 is one whole, so you should have worked out that left over would be 19/56. And that cannot be simplified. Which is bigger, 38% or 3/8? Well, 3/8 or 3/8 is the same as 3 divided by 8. If you did 3 divided by 8, you should have worked out you'd get 37.5%. So therefore, 38% is bigger. Okay, so this is the last one. So I'm going to do this one on the board. So what fraction is half of x? Well, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to work out what fraction x is by adding these 2 together and then subtracting it from a whole. So let's look at this. 1/6 add 3/5. I'm going to try and squeeze it in here. 1/6 add 3/5. Remember, I like to write my common denominator up there, which is 30. Okay? 6 times 5 is 30. 1 times 5 is 5. 3/5 is 10 to 30ths. 5 times 6 is 30. 3 times 6 is 18. So I'm going to add these 2 together now. Okay, and usually I write it underneath, but we're running out of space a little bit here. So 5/30ths and 8/30ths, we know that makes 23/30ths. So you should have worked out that there's 7/30ths left over. So x is 7/30ths. But it then says, what is half of x? So for those of you who know how to divide fractions, you should have done, to find half of something, you obviously have to divide it by 2. So 7/30ths divided by 2. So those of you I've taught will know the keep, change, flip. Ryan, that you've watched here on the YouTube, keep, change, flip. Yeah, that's the action. So we're going to do that one. We're going to turn that into a fraction. So 7/30ths divided by 2. Well, 2 as a fraction is 2/1. So I keep the 7/30ths. Change that to multiply and flip to make a half. So 7 times 1 is 7, 30 times 2 is 60. So, what fraction is half of x? Hopefully some of you got to that. 7/60ths. Okay guys, thanks. Hope you enjoyed today's session. Stay safe, be good, and catch you next time.